Blessings, everyone. This is Reverend Aphren with the Four Pillars Temple. So I am out and about today. I'm taking some pictures, and for those of you who have been following my social media, my channel, or our temple page, you may have been familiar with the fact that I am something of an amateur photographer, very, very amateur. I mostly do point and click, point and shoot really. However, I do enjoy coming out at this time of year, light jacket weather, and it gives me an opportunity to come out and take some pictures of mushrooms, which I always enjoy doing. So while I was out today, I actually was inspired to talk about something and touch upon a particular topic. I think I may have talked about this before, but it never hurts repeating and reviewing. So the topic that I was thinking of and wanted to kind of talk about is the topic of magical law. Now, the laws I'm going to talk about you may have heard of before, you may have read in your studies, or maybe you've never heard of them at all. These law, there's actually several that I'm going to be discussing, are not agreed on by everyone. Not everyone follows these laws. Not everyone thinks that there should be laws to even follow. So we're going to talk a little bit briefly about the different laws and how maybe they affect us and how we can utilize them in our practice if we so choose to do so. So I'd like to preface first by saying that, you know, some people, again, they don't like laws, they don't like rules, they don't want to have to do anything that somebody else tells them to do. And so sometimes those people are often drawn to Wicca, right? Because they have lived a life where maybe they have spent most of their life being told what to do, and so now they come to a faith that is life affirming, and one where they actually have the ability to make their own choices and affect their own life. And so a lot of times people don't necessarily want to follow rules. I think there are a couple of good things about rules. First of all, I think rules put a lot of our life and our experience into context. So if we're told how certain laws or rules work, we can accept and understand the way that things just are. So for example, we talk about the law of gravity, right? We throw something up, it comes down. So we know that if gravity is a thing, we need to be mindful that if we throw stuff up above our head, it's going to come down and hit us in the head. So it's important that we're mindful of these laws and rules because they do affect us, whether we choose to accept it or not. Secondly, I think the importance of laws is that it also gives us the opportunity to understand where we could accrue positive karma and where we might also accrue negative karma. And so I think it's important that we understand that laws in a metaphysical sense, in a spiritual sense, matter, and they're important to us, and we should be mindful of them. But again, it's also subjective, right? And so it's different for everyone, and so we have to understand that different traditions may accept different laws and have different rules. And so some of the rules and laws that I'm going to talk about, I'm watching a chipmunk, some of the rules and laws that I'm going to talk about may not pertain to you, or may not pertain to your tradition, or you may choose not to follow them. So the first law that I want to talk about briefly, of course, is the law of three. Now, the law of three, of course, is a basic tenet of the Wiccan faith. So briefly, the law of three means that whatever we do, we receive back through karma. Now, the Karelian nativist tradition identifies the number 3 as being symbolic. So essentially what we mean by that is that whatever we do, it is going to be exponentially increased, and then it was returned to us. So it's like the ripples on a pond. We throw a rock and it ripples, but the ripples will sometimes go out and then they come back. And when they come back, the ripples are much further apart. They're much bigger than maybe they were when they went out in the first place. So we identify that we do works in this world, and as we do works in this world, we actually receive back the things that we've done. So that is a law of the Wiccan faith in terms of ethics and morals of our faith, but it's also a law of magic, because in that law we understand that what we send out magically, we're going to get back exponentially so. So I just wanted to briefly mention that law. The second law that kind of came to mind while I was walking this afternoon is the witch's pyramid. Now, the witch's pyramid isn't something you'll find in every Wiccan text. It's not something that's exemplified in every Wiccan tradition. It's not something that even I often follow. But it's something that I want to share because I believe it's something that is important and something that we can think about at the very least. So, the witch's pyramid is a law which is specific to magic, and it gives us the opportunity to think about our magical process and what we want to see and how we want to go about the process. And so there are four components to the witch's pyramid: to know, to dare, to will, and to be silent. And so essentially what these say is to know. When we work magic, it's important that we know what it is that we're doing. It's important that we know the rules. It's important that we know our practices. It's important that we know how to perform the magic, right? To will means we have to have the will, the desire, the gumption to do the work, right? We have to have the willpower behind the magic that we're doing that's actually going to propel us forward and propel the magic that we're doing forward. To dare means that we are going to use, we have the not just the willpower and the knowledge, but we also have what it takes to take a risk, because sometimes magic can be risky. Sometimes the thing that we want, we get, and that in and of itself can be a risk. Understanding that, you know, like that old saying, you know, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes what we think we want is not exactly what we want. And then when we get the thing that we are looking for or looking to get, we also identify that it's not exactly what we wanted and we got it, now we're stuck with it. So we have to be willing to take that risk. And the last part is this idea of to be silent. And for many people that ascribe to this law, they believe that in order for the magic to work in the way that it's meant to, we have to be silent. We have to be secretive about it. And it's not that we're trying to be sneaky or secretive and cloak and daggery. It just basically means that we are going to keep the work that we have done to ourselves until it manifests, until it comes to fruition. And the belief behind that is this idea that if we have doubt about it, about the magic that we've worked, then we lose that willpower to do it. Or if we have doubt about it, then we lose that daring to do it, right? And so doubt destabilizes our pyramid, the witch's pyramid, with the four bases, right? And so because it is destabilized, the magic isn't going to work or isn't going to be as effective. And so to be silent means that we need to keep it private until such a time that it has become manifest. So let's say that I'm doing magic for my dream job, right? And I have this job in mind, which again, you never should do. You should always make it general so the universe can send what is best for you. But let's just say in this example, I have a very specific job in mind. And so I work magic to get that specific job. And I tell some people about it and they're like, yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, you're not qualified for that job. Why would you even do that, you know? And so through their sort of naysaying negative attitude, it starts to maybe develop doubt within ourselves, doubt in our abilities to do the job, doubt within ourselves of the abilities that our magic is going to work. And so through that experience, what ends up happening is that we destabilize our pyramid, and the witch's pyramid, and we eventually cause the magic itself to fizzle and break away. And so putting it into that kind of perspective, to be silent is really sort of the cherry on top. And so those who ascribe to this belief, to be silent is very, very powerful and is necessary in order for their magic to work. So we talked about the rule of three, and we talked about the witch's pyramid, which is the 4 rules. Now, there's another rule that kind of came to mind, another set of laws that came to mind. And truthfully, I don't know originally where they came from, but I know they've been published in the works of Scott Cunningham. And so that was something that kind of came to mind. I don't remember them all offhand, so I'm going to read them to you from my text. But this is what he calls the law of the power. So I'll read them through, and then we'll talk about them. The power shall not be used to bring harm, injure, control, or harm others. But of course, if the need arises, then we have the opportunity to protect ourselves. The power is only used as the need dictates. The power can be used for your own personal gain, as long as you are doing so in a way that is not harming another person. It's also unwise to accept money for the use of the power, because by doing that, it actually cheapens and lessens the value of the power. And finally, the use of the power for prideful gain is discouraged as well for the same reason, because it cheapens the mysteries of magic and of Wicca. And it's important also to remember that magic is a blessing and a gift of the gods, and so in order for us to be able to use and continue to use the magic, we should always use it with respect and dignity. So those are kind of some brief statements that Scott Cunningham identifies that are important as well when thinking about working magic. And I often think about these as well, because a lot of times people come to Wicca, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, with this understanding that I can do whatever I want, I can live my own life, and no one's going to tell me what to do. Unfortunately, sometimes things can take on a life of their own, and if individuals aren't careful, they can put themselves in a position where they could be taken advantage of, or they are creating negative effects because of the magic that they're using. And so I think I like what Scott Cunningham has written, because it's not necessarily dogmatic. It's more so out of love and out of an experience, a place of experience. And I'm sure he's written that, or he's ratified that because of his own experiences. And I would have to agree with him that it's important that we use magic respectfully and responsibly. And with personal responsibility, they say, with responsibility comes great power, and so, or vice versa, with power comes great responsibility. And that's something that we need to remember as well, that we as practitioners of Wicca and of magic, we need to be mindful that we do have the ability to make change in our lives, and with that comes a price. And often people are scared, like, oh my gosh, like that old saying, be careful what you wish for, and maybe some Hollywood movies have kind of made it seem like if you do something in terms of magic, something negative might come out of it, or something you don't intend to happen will come out of it. And I don't necessarily think that's always the case. I think sometimes people over-explain that part because they want people to be cautious. I don't think it's necessarily possible to get unintended effects in sort of a severe way. Like, let's say, for example, someone is invoking a deity for a particular purpose. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden the deity is going to do something they don't intend, or maybe they think they're invoking one deity and they actually are invoking something else, and it's this big, evil, scary thing. That's not entirely how it works, but it's something that we need to be mindful that it can have some other unintended purposes. Again, kind of like what I mentioned earlier about, we think we want something and it's not exactly what we want, or exactly what we thought we wanted. So those are some big laws. Of course, there are some other minor laws that kind of like the law of gravity, right? So for example, the law of attraction. A lot of people think of the book, The Law of Attraction, when I mention that. But when I talk about the law of attraction, what I mean is, based upon like sympathetic magic. You have something that you've created a psychic link to something else, and then whatever happens to this thing is happening to the situation that you want, and that's the basis kind of sympathetic magic. So for example, we create a psychic link where maybe a doll, a puppet, represents a person, and then we use that doll for the focal point for healing work. And so by doing healing work to the puppet, we're actually doing healing work to the individual that is psychically linked to the puppet. Sympathetic magic, right? So the law of attraction it kind of works on that basis for us, this idea that whatever we're doing here is going to affect something over there. Like attracts like, right? And then one law that was recently that I was recently introduced to several years ago is the law of contagion. And essentially, when we think about it, it makes sense. It sounds like a scary name, the law of contagion, especially in the time of COVID and the time of pandemic. But essentially what that means is that we can use something of power, and by being in proximity or mixed with something else, that something else then becomes powerful or becomes holy. So a very simple example, we create holy water, and maybe we use holy water and we put a little bit of that holy water into a larger container of water, thereby making the larger container of water holy as well, because we're contaminating it with that holy water to make the larger container holy at that point. So the law of contagion, sometimes you can take something positive and something holy and place it into a area, right? And thereby making that area holy, or making that area consecrated, or making that area sacred. And so when we come together for ritual and magic and we create sacred space, that area thereby becomes sacred by the very nature of the work that we're doing in that space, at least for that time. And I suppose the opposite could be true. If you have a situation or a person or an object that is negative, it could make the environment negative. It can, contaminate the environment and make the environment negative. And so I'm sure many of us have experienced times where we've went into a place of great positivity, a place of opening, and a place of peace, whether that be a sacred site or a religious site, or even a ritual space, or magic circle. And so we can affect the areas around us using those principles of contagion, using those principles and those laws of like attracts like, of sympathetic magic. But again, we have to also always remember that these things come with great responsibility. And so that's kind of just something that came to me while I was out today, experiencing and being in nature and filling up my cup and my spiritual meter, and reinvigorating myself. So as always, it's not brief, but I hope that through watching this video you get a little bit of insight about maybe the importance of some of these laws and these rules, and why we have them, and how we can use these in our own spiritual and magical practices. And sometimes identifying that just like with the law of karma and the rule of three, no matter what we do, we can't always change these laws. You know, no matter what we do, we can't change that gravity exists and that it affects us. No matter what we do, we can't get away from the karma that we accrue in our life, because that's just the way that the universe works. And I think that we can identify people that are Wiccan versus people that identify as not Wiccan because of the certain beliefs that they have, and we understand, and I understand, and I hope that you can understand that there are certain beliefs that are the cornerstone of Wicca, and if someone identifies as Wiccan, then more than likely they're going to have the same beliefs as well. So again, I hope these things were helpful to someone, and until next time, signing off for now.